Today, SUNY Polytechnic Institute is proud and privileged to present an honorary degree awarded by the Board of Trustees of the State University of New York. It's awarded to our distinguished guest and commencement speaker, Dr. Ioannis Miaoulis. For decades, as a leader in science and education, Dr. Miules has achieved great distinction in a remarkable range of endeavors: an innovative leadership role at Tufts University, a commitment to improving the science and technology curriculum in Massachusetts, and a continuing dedication to enhancing knowledge of engineering and technology for people of all ages and inspiring the next generation of engineers, inventors, and scientists. Through his tireless efforts with the creation of the National Center for Technological Literacy, improved educational standards, assessment, and professional development have reached more than 77,000 teachers and 6.2 million students in all 50 states. Go ahead. Whoever started the applause on that end, we didn't put them up to it. It was genuine. Dr. Miules has championed educational reform at the national level, building support for the first Engineering Education for Innovation Act and for the Educating Tomorrow's Engineers Act in 2013. For his pioneering work, the support and encouragement he has given to students, and for the valuable inspiration that his example has offered to students and colleagues alike, the State University of New York is pleased to confer upon him the degree of Doctor of Science. Please join me to receive the degree. The degree. Oh, so it's official.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Good morning. That's good. What a beautiful day. What a great day to start a new journey. What a wonderful day to share with people that care so much for you, your parents, grandparents, siblings, spouses, partners, teachers, and friends. I feel honored that I, a stranger in the mix, was asked to play a small role in sending you off to your journey. Now, don't let my Boston accent mislead you. I actually came from Greece as a college freshman, and I have been graduated a number of times and sat in similar seats that you are sitting now. And commencement speeches are all about inspiring and giving advice. So since many of you will soon be officially engineers, I decided to use the engineering design process to prepare my speech and advice. So elements from my advice have been researched, designed, prototyped, tested, redesigned, reprototyped, retested, and now they are ready to be presented. They all came from my life experience, both professional and personal, and I will try to be brief and to the point. Advice number 1. Find a life passion and stick with it. A passion that will continuously define your goals and fuel you with endless energy. Now, you may be wondering, how do I find a life passion? There are many, many ways you can. And in my case, it happened by literally taking a wrong turn while driving to work in the late 80s. So it was the first week after I moved into a new house about 25 miles from Tufts, and I began my career as an assistant professor at Tufts back in the mid-80s. And I was doing some cool research on some cool materials, some cool superconducting materials that you could put a magnet on top of them and cool them off, and the magnet would float up in the air like magic. Of course, there was no magic, it was physics, but it looked like magic. So I was driving, it was my third day driving from home to work, and of course, as everybody does, when they move to a new house, I was trying to find a better way to get to work. And I made a mistake, and I ended up at a dead end, which happened to be the neighborhood middle school. So as I was looping around to get back into the road, I thought, we made these really cool materials in the lab. Maybe I should show the kids in the middle school. So I got out of the car, and I went to the office, the principal's office. I introduced myself. I said, I'm a professor at Tufts. I would be interested, if you're interested in presenting the materials to the kids. So he was very enthusiastic. He brought down the 8th grade science teacher, who was a nice gentleman, who invited me to give a talk to the kids the following Friday. So I was very excited because I had never taught kids at that age level. And also in Greece, where I grew up, I went to an all-boys school. So I had never been in a co-ed environment. So I spent a good part of the week working with my undergraduate and graduate students to prepare hands-on activities for the kids so they would really understand the physics behind these materials. So here I am on Friday giving the show and to the kids, and the kids seemed really engaged and interested, and right in the front row there was a little girl with frizzy blonde hair. And she was very intense. She was keeping notes of everything I had to say. So at the end of my talk, I noticed the teacher, the science teacher, was bringing 3 boys with him toward me. And these 3 boys had been introduced to me as his science boys before. So the science boys were coming toward me. The little girl in the front row sees them coming toward me. She cuts right in front of them, and she asked me, Dr. Miaoulis, I would like you to help me with my science fair project. Now, I had not signed up to help anybody with a science fair project, but what do you say? So I wanted to be polite, so I smiled, and I was listening to her. And as I was listening to her, the teacher comes and pulls me aside and whispers into my ear, do not waste your time with her. This is going to be nothing in science. I want you to work with my science boys. And that moment, folks, is a responsible moment, not only for me being here today, because my career would have been totally different, but it really defined my life passion to get involved with schools and make a difference. So I started getting involved with the school. The laboratories of the school were pathetic, like unfortunately most laboratories in K-12 schools are. So I started getting grants for the school, and the grants became larger and larger. We brought in about $2 million on grants to improve the science program. Some of my colleagues started getting involved also because they started having children and they became interested in education of young children. And the science outreach program at Tufts grew to be a big operation. So in the mid-90s, when I was then Dean of the School of Engineering, we decided to invite a major benefactor for lunch to ask him for $10 million to endow the program. So we would have a good chunk of money to do science outreach program. So this fellow is a brilliant engineer, 200 patents, inventing things like the A to D converter, the fetal monitor machine that either was used on you or you have used on your kids, tons of things. Brilliant, very wealthy, very philanthropic, and very difficult guy. So it sort of goes in a package many times. So here we are at lunch, we're making the pitch, and it was myself, the provost of the university, and Chris Rogers, a professor at Tufts. So Chris was making the pitch. He said, we would love you to endow the program because science is the discipline that teaches kids about the world around them. And the donor gets up, looks at Chris, says, really, you think science, the way we teach it at schools, teaches kids about the world around them? Chris said, of course. And the donor banged his hand on the table and left the lunch. You can imagine the panic at lunch. So that night, Chris Rogers and I went out to dinner to figure out how did we mess up. And then we looked around the restaurant and we realized that what we teach in science and what you learned in K-12 science is all about the natural world. Remember rocks and water cycle and human body, almost nothing about the human-made world. But if you look at the world around you, about 98% of the stuff we use, we drive in, we wear are human-made. And this is not part of the curriculum. And it's not part of the curriculum because the curriculum was defined in 1893, at Harvard actually, where engineering was all farming engineering. Most kids were growing up in farms, so they didn't put it in the curriculum. And nobody thought to put it back in. So here we have reached a ridiculous point where you spend a month in middle school learning how a volcano works, and you spend no time learning how a car works. How often do you find yourself in a volcano compared to a car? So when we realized that, I developed my life passion. And my life passion is to introduce technology, the human-made world, and engineering, and the way you create the human-made world in school curricula worldwide and in lives of children worldwide, starting from kindergarten. And it was the last thing I had imagined as I was thinking about my future sitting in your seats. I had no idea that this would have been my life passion. Advice number 2, your life is the performance, not the rehearsal. And a lot of people live their whole life preparing for life, and then they die. Live it, love it, enjoy it. Don't just continue preparing for it. It is happening now. 3 hints under this advice. Hint number 1, combine your work with things you enjoy, your personal passions and hobbies. As a professor, I had teaching assignments to teach fluid mechanics and heat transfer. My hobbies are fishing and cooking, so I developed a fishing course, which was called Life in Moving Fluids, which is fluid mechanics from the point of view of a fish or a plant. And my cooking course was called Gourmet Engineering, which is a heat transfer course, because when you cook, you transfer heat. And I had the lecture part, and all the experiments were done in a fabulous laboratory. I had the best-smelling laboratory at Tufts University. And actually, you could eat the experiment after the course, after the class, which is pretty cool. So my teaching became better, as did my fishing and cooking. Hint number 2, question the norm and the expected. Let your life passion determine your direction, not your parents, colleagues, spouse, partner, and friends. I had 3 degrees from Tufts. I met my children's mother at Tufts, had worked only at Tufts, and my 3 golden retrievers were named after Tufts buildings. The museum job came out of nowhere to me. They just called me. They were interested, see if I'm interested. And I immediately realized that my life passion to introduce engineering into the lives of young children would have a better chance to becoming a reality if I left Tufts and went to the museum. And so I left. I gave up my position, tenure, packed up, and left. No one thought I would ever leave Tufts, at least not until the dogs die. Hint number 3, most of the fun is out of your comfort zone. Question the norm and the expected. In your professional life, most of the excitement is not in your traditional discipline. It is hidden in the crevices between your discipline and others. If you're an engineer, explore biology and use your knowledge and problem-solving skills to discover biology that biologists cannot. And if you're a health scientist, learn engineering design processes and invent new drug delivery mechanisms that doctors never imagined. In your personal life, have children because you really want to, not because that is what people do or your parents tell you you should. Travel to areas that will make your friends think you are crazy. And when you travel to big overpopulated cities, visit the food markets where the natives buy their food and taste foods you never thought would belong to a plate. And always remember, you're not too young or too old to do anything. Advice number 3, be a true ambassador to your profession and inspire young people to dream becoming professionals like yourself. And in my case, my passion is engineering. And my passion grew when I came to the United States because in Europe, where I grew up, engineering is a well-known thing. People know what engineers do, and it's very well respected, and the best kids tend to go to the engineering schools. Here, when I came to the US, I noticed there's general confusion about what engineering is, because people that drive trains are called engineers, people on the radio station that arrange the volume and stuff are called engineers. I was touring a high school not too long ago in Massachusetts, and brand new school, and the principal gave me a tour, and right next to the career guidance office, there was the janitor's closet with a big blue sign saying engineering outside. And if you think that's too bad, well, the National Academy of Engineering, the organization where the most brilliant engineers in the US belong to, the building in DC, if you go to their basement, their janitor closet says engineering on it. And my kids know about, I have 2 daughters, actually they're both mechanical engineers, and my kids know about my passion. And once we checked in a hotel in California, and my daughter tried to use the toilet, and it was clogged. So I said, Marina, just call downstairs the front desk, and they will send somebody up. So she called, and they started laughing. I said, what's so funny? She said, well, they said the engineer is coming up right away to unclog the toilet. You know? And so we have a problem in the US because it's not that only people are confused by the term engineer, but 72% of US computer scientists, technologists, and engineers have had a relative that's an engineer. 72%, which means if you don't have a relative, chances are you're not going to consider the field. Now, how many of you are going to be graduated with a degree in engineering, technology, or computer science? Let's raise your hands. Great. Now, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. How many of you have had a relative that's an engineer or a technologist or computer science? You see, 72%, exactly. You know. So, the other way people find out about careers is television, okay? Now, who are the heroes on TV? There are doctors, lawyers, now forensic scientists in CSI, and so if you see these fields, they're booming with students, because students see CSI shows, and they think that they're going to study forensic science, and then work around gorgeous people wearing miniskirts and tank tops, and work in the dark in a morgue, you know? There is only one engineer in the main TV. You know who that is? Homer Simpson. So this is the image of engineering. And NASA, the most amazing engineering entity, always misses the point and the opportunity. When the rover made it to Mars many years ago, NASA's press release called it a science miracle. When something went wrong with it, they call it an engineering error. So my passion to promote my profession and to inspire young people to consider it as a career is pretty strong, as you can tell. So take your own wrong turn while driving to work and get involved with your neighborhood school, change the life of a child or thousands of children by introducing them to your profession. Now, if you're wondering what happened to that little girl with the frizzy hair that's responsible for me being here and for my career, of course she won first prize at the science fair that year. Then, and there is more. She went on to high school, the regional high school, and she graduated near the top of her class. Then she got into Haverford College in Pennsylvania. She graduated a double major in biology and history, and then she went to Tanzania. And in Tanzania, she started a non-for-profit organization that fundraised and built science laboratories for children. And about 5 years ago, she left Tanzania. The foundation is still healthy because they ask me for money every year, so I know it's pretty healthy. And then she went to Stanford. And about last year, she finished her PhD in international education. And I just heard that she got a tenure-track teaching position at the University of Minnesota. So thank you, good luck to you, and do not forget to hug or call your mother tomorrow.